thinking you could defeat me, the mistress of all evil.
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
It is with great reluctance that I have agreed to this calling. I love democracy.
Villains. While the hero may be the main character, the hero is often defined by the villains they fight. A villain is not always a bad person, sometimes they even end up being sympathetic, and sometimes we end up rooting for them more than the heroes. Love is the most powerful emotion, but hate is the second strongest emotion. The same way love can give you purpose in life, being the reason for many to get out of bed in the morning, those who do not have someone to love need someone to hate to fill that void. In a similar way to not having love in your life, making you feel like you have a void within your soul, not having anyone to hate or fight against can also make you feel empty and hollow inside. And that is why we love villains. But when it comes to representation for certain groups of people, or giving a villain their own solo movie, things can sometimes get controversial. Look no further than all the controversy surrounding the Joker movie starring Joaquin Phoenix. But we're not here to talk about male villains, we're here to talk about female villains and how they've kind of gone down in recent years. But before we talk about the bad female villains of the modern times, we need to talk about what a good female villain is. I decided to tweet out what people thought a good female villain was, and unsurprisingly, most of them picked Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think most people would agree with me that Azula is the best villain in all of Avatar. Zuko is a bit whiny when he was a villain, and he's more of an anti-hero, plus he gets reformed and becomes one of the heroes. Combustion Man, aka Sparky Boom Man, is just an intimidating henchman. And the Fire Lord is mysterious for the most part, but once he gets revealed, he's just a dictator who wants to watch the world burn. Not really the most complex of characters. Korra has a ton of different villains, and a lot of them are pretty damn good, but none of them hold a blue candle to Azula. Azula is the only character in the entire series who can use blue fire, which is about twice as hot as normal fire. She fucking one-shot Aang while he was in the Avatar state. She's smart, calculating, beautiful, and funny. Wait, hang on, let me look up her age here. Holy shit, she's only 14. Yep, she's more powerful than Zuko, and she's the younger sibling. But probably the best part about Azula is despite being one of the most powerful characters in the entire Avatar series, she's way more dangerous when she doesn't use her powers. She's so manipulative, and has little to no empathy at all. Even during the eclipse when she had no powers, she was able to manipulate Sokka, the smartest person on Team Avatar, giving her just enough time to get her powers back. She is definitely one of, if not the greatest female villain of all time. And you would think that a lot of writers would try to take some tips from her on how to make good female villains.
Yes, but actually no.
But unfortunately, a few years after Azula, a lot of female villains started going really downhill. So now let's talk about a female villain who really isn't all that great. Evil Lyn from Masters of the Universe Revelations. I already went over her a little bit in my video, Why is there so much wokeness in shows nowadays? So if you want more information, go check out that video. But to be fair, Evil Lyn is not that terrible of a character. Hang on. Let me explain. In the first season, she started out as a villain, but then after Skeletor died, she kind of lost her purpose and started being reformed. But at the end of the season, it was revealed that Skeletor wasn't dead.
So that was a fucking lie.
And when season 2 starts, she joins Skeletor, throwing out all her character development out the window in the process. Also, her and Skeletor have an abusive relationship, which wasn't a thing in the original He-Man.
So that was a fucking lie.
I guess the writers just wanted to turn her into Harley Quinn, but without the insanity, which was one of the most fun aspects about Harley Quinn. But then she uses her feminine charm to get Skeletor to drop his guard, turning herself into a character from Baki, I mean a master of the universe. And because there's no order to the universe and God is dead, she decides she's going to destroy the universe. But not before destroying fucking heaven. But after a battle with Teela, she decides she doesn't want to be a villain anymore and gets reformed again.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
And her punishment for destroying fucking heaven, causing a war which probably killed several more thousand people.
Also, she tried to destroy the entire fucking universe.
She's only banished, which is basically the medieval version of getting cancelled.
Do you like this? Do you like this? Well, no more.
Oh yeah, they also gave her this backstory where she was poor and her parents tried to eat her. I guess it's supposed to make her seem sympathetic, but this backstory just seemed to come out of nowhere. Now here's the thing, if you just made one change, it would completely fix her character. Just don't have Evil Lyn become a master of the universe and try to destroy the entire universe.
What are you, fucking stupid?
If Skeletor was the main villain and all the heroes were trying to stop him, and towards the end Evil Lyn decides to turn against him and join the heroes, it would fix everything. But they decided to make her the villain, but then they decided to not make her the villain. It's a really confusing writing choice. And that right there explains the biggest problem with modern female villains, and that's not actually having them be the villain. Like the Disney movie Maleficent, whose name literally means to wish evil on others, and many people actually rate Maleficent as the most evil character in all of Disney. She wasn't exactly the most complex three-dimensional character. Hell, she only cast a spell on the princess because she wasn't invited to a party. Wow, what a bitch. When I saw the trailer for this movie, I thought to myself, oh, they're gonna talk about Maleficent's origin story, and they're gonna make her seem somewhat sympathetic. But no, they didn't do that. Okay, well, technically they did that, but they also rewritten like 90% of the story. She was only evil because of the actions of a man, of course. And she's evil for a little bit, but then she stops being evil. Basically, she's no longer a villain. I guess you could say she was just evil for the sake of being evil, and that made her a boring character. But now they just have the king being evil just for the sake of being evil. This character is really boring. Let's make them more complex by adding another boring character. Like, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to do what they did with Wicked, but it just doesn't work with Maleficent in the same way it works with the Wicked Witch. I think if they just had her be evil towards the end, but still somewhat sympathetic and where you can understand where she's coming from, the movie would have done so much better.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
Like, take the Joker. We sympathized with him. A lot of people related to his character. But at the end of the day, he was still fucking evil. Like, imagine if the movie ended with Arthur saving Bruce Wayne from the guy who shot his parents and he was the one to train Batman. Okay, in a way that sounds fucking awesome, but it's stupid. I also heard they did something similar in the live-action Cruella movie, but I haven't seen that movie. And this is the biggest problem with modern female villains. They're not evil. Or they are evil and they get redeemed way too fast, like the diamonds from Steven Universe. And you can tell the writers are trying to make a female villain, but they never go all the way. Do you think if there's a female villain, people will just start to hate women? Because there's plenty of male villains, and a lot of people seem to love them. But I would like to turn the mic over to SpyV, so a woman can give her thoughts on this situation.
Thanks, Jar. So I'm definitely one who has kind of been watching the relative downhill decline in female characters in more recent years, at least when it comes to the mainstream stuff. Obviously there are still plenty of great female characters of all strokes somewhere out there, but when we're talking about these mega conglomerates like Disney and whatnot, there seems to be this need to appeal to the more modern and socially aware crowd, but often in doing so they end up completely undermining the entire point that that crowd was trying to make and produce characters that piss everyone off, or they don't really satisfy anybody. I made my own video a while back talking about the trend of rewriting female characters to have superpowers and how that's a really stupid trend. But villains are certainly a unique subcategory of these female characters. One thing for sure is that nowadays people do prefer complicated villains, but it seems that complicated has to mean sympathetic. And often with these female characters, we are layering the sympathy on so thick that you're completely drowning out the core of their villainy and what makes them a villain. I think this stems from the fact that historically we have seen a lack of complicated and rich female characters, and some writers, especially from these big companies that are trying to appeal to a wide modern audience, are worried that they'll step on toes and fall into negative writing stereotypes that have been used against female characters in the past. So like so many things, they have overcorrected. But in doing so, they just lose the core of what makes a good character. A good character can be a hero, a villain, anything in between. But some of the writers aren't blending the lines of good and evil in these villains. They're just making their characterizations a muddled mess and an overall less compelling character to watch. Cruella de Vil was a lady who wanted to skin puppies to make a fur coat. Turning her into more of a girl boss is just strange, to say the least.
You need a hero to identify with, to look at them as if they're the best version of yourself, something you can inspire to be. But you also need a villain to identify with, something to see as the worst version of yourself, so you can look at the worst aspects of yourself, so you can avoid becoming like them. But anyways, comment down below what you think is a good female villain. And get ready for the next video, cause it's gonna be a really long one. Like sometimes writers come up with a great female villain, like Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil 7. Oh wait, sorry, my mistake, it was Resident Evil 8. I'm not a fan of the series, I don't keep up with it. Everybody fucking loved that tall undead vampire mommy. And what did they do? Well, they had her die really early on, and the story was focused on this other female villain who no one remembers. Can any of you even name a female villain that came out in the last 5 years who stays evil, doesn't get redeemed? Also, anti-heroes or rival characters don't count. You guys know about the Bechdel test, or is it the Bechtel test? Whatever, I'm gonna make my own test. The Mechanicus test. A movie with a female villain will fail the Mechanicus test if A, the female villain is redeemed way too easily, or B, the female villain is actually not evil. And yes, my last name is Mechanicus. Jar Mechanicus. That's my last name, canonically. Now, one good female villain I can think of that has come out recently is Dr. Smith from the reboot of Lost in Space. Now, maybe I'm a little biased because the show does have a robot character. But Dr. Smith is not only a good female villain, but she's one of the most unique villains I've ever seen ever. She's not very smart, especially compared to the rest of the cast who are literally the most brilliant minds from Earth. She's not super strong or has any unique abilities or anything like that, but she has one thing: manipulation and self-preservation. She will say and do anything for her own benefit. She doesn't care who gets in her way, and she will backstab anyone, even if they just helped her out. I haven't gotten that far in this series, but I have heard she does redeem herself by sacrificing her life for the benefit of others, which really doesn't seem like it's within her nature, but when someone makes a personal sacrifice, that is the best way to redeem a character. Men and women are both capable of manipulation, but they do manipulate in very different ways, and I don't think her character would work nearly as well if she was a man, which in the original version, she was. I don't know, maybe I am making just a big deal out of nothing, but I have noticed female villains have certainly gone downhill in recent years. Like I said in an earlier video, a villain sue is the best way to make a Mary Sue that people will actually like. So you think they would actually go through with making villain Mary Sues, but they just don't make them even villains. They just make them Mary Sues! Alright writers, I'll give you a tip on how to make a female villain easily. You know how you make that normal female character that the audience hates and you scream at them and call them sexist for not liking your female character who's clearly an awful person? Like the elf girl from Santa Inc. Just take that character, but make it clear that the audience is not supposed to like them.
I hate this channel.